Have you ever observed an artist at work? Whether it's a painter, whether it's a composer, whether it's a dancer or a singer, or even a chef or somebody that is creating some artwork or some masterpiece. They get so engrossed and so involved in their piece of art and their next masterpiece that they are busy with, that they forget about everything around them. They forget about the world outside there, they forget about targets, objectives, they forget about everybody, even themselves, and they get into that piece of art and they are so focused on trying to get that piece of art created. I have the privilege of having been born into a musical family. My father was a professional musician. And I grew up with music. So I learned to play instruments, and as a result, I also started composing a couple of songs along the way. And I know exactly how that artist feels, because if the rat race gets too much for me, or I just want to escape or get away, then I pick up my guitar and I start playing. And soon I'm composing a song, and everything around me just seems to disappear. It's as if I get transported to another planet. And I sit there and I'm so engrossed in that song, and the kids can scream, everything can happen. I'm totally tuned out to all of that. I'm just into this piece of art. Leadership is an art. And the art requires three things to work properly. The first being ability. You need to know how to lead before you can lead. Leonardo da Vinci, who was a famous painter, as we all know, was born, because he was born out of wedlock and he was born to a peasant mother, he never had any formal schooling. And he used to run around the streets of Florence, and he was homeschooled to a point. And eventually he ended up spending a lot of time in the studio of one of the then famous artists in Florence called Andrea Diccioni. And in the process, he started an apprenticeship with Diccioni. And he learned all about art and about maths and about engineering. And he learned about shapes, he learned about the form, he learned about proportions, he learned about scale, about color, all of those things. And it took years of studying and learning how to paint and how to do art before he was even allowed to paint with Diccioni, not even on his own. And then years after that, he got to a point where he was good enough that he could paint on his own. And we all know the famous painter that he was, along with all the other feats that he had. And two of his most famous paintings that we are all aware of is the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper. I like art. I like looking at art. I like making art through music. And I think I enjoy drawing as well. So I have this vision in my head of this stallion, this big, powerful, gracious black stallion that's galloping gallantly through the field, the green fields, this black mane flowing in the wind, those muscles rippling as it runs and it crosses the meadow. And then I think to myself, I'm going to draw that stallion. So I pick up my pencil and I get my paper and I start drawing. And I have this beautiful black stallion that's in my mind, and I'm creating that on paper with a flowing mane and the tail and these muscular legs that are running across. And there I have my stallion. Voila, my beautiful stallion. Looks a bit like a rat. The point is, I never went to art school. I didn't learn all the techniques of drawing. I didn't learn how to get the proportions and the different shapes. So no matter how hard I try and no matter how hard I practice, every time I do it, my horse ends up looking like a rat. So you need to learn to lead. If you want that beautiful black stallion, you need to learn the skill. So you need to learn how to lead. Self-leadership is where it starts. Remember, not everybody wants to lead. So self-leadership, I need to decide, do I want to lead? I need to be aware of my skills. I need to be confident that I can learn how to lead. Somebody once said that if you want to learn to swim, you can't read a book. You actually have to get into the water. Even with swimming, they don't let you in the water alone. They first teach you how to swim before they let you in the water so that you don't drown. But self-leadership, you need to want to do it, you need to be motivated, and you need to be prepared to be taught. Otherwise, you're not going to learn. We were never taught to lead. We were taught to manage, but we were never taught to lead. When I left school, I joined the corporate world. I got a job at a large retail organization. And I was selected as a trainee store manager. Big moment for me. I was now going to be in charge of a store, and I was going to make lots of money, and I was going to have lots of people working for me. For 6 weeks, I spent time at the academy, and they taught me all the theory about managing a retail store. From cashing up, to banking, to receiving, dispatching, merchandising, how to control stock losses. They even taught me how to produce or process supplier claims. The problem is, even in the 9 months after the retail academy that I spent in the store under the store supervision of a store manager, I still didn't learn the most important part, and that was how to lead my people. So I thought, wait, I know what I can do. I am going to attend a course. So I went on a bunch of management courses. Some the company paid for, some I did on my own time after hours. But I still didn't learn how to lead. I learned a lot more management skills. I even learned how to fire people by using the correct procedures. There must be something else, I thought. So I enrolled in a degree. So I did a bachelor's degree in commerce. It took me 7 years, by the way, to complete. But I completed it. And at the end of that 7 years, I still had not learned how to lead. I was just learning more and more management skills. What did happen was I was promoted to area manager. So the point is that we never get taught. All the courses we attend, every time at work, all they teach us is how to manage. And the difference between leading and managing is managers control and intimidate. Leaders inspire and empower. And empowering means to develop somebody to a point where their skills are the same as yours or better. But we don't do that. And we never learn that. It's only when I eventually got to do my doctorate that I got exposed to the likes of Kenneth Blanchard and John C. Maxwell and Simon Sinek and these guys that were promoting this new concept of leadership, which, by the way, is not new. Leadership is a lot like parenting. It's a choice. You get promoted to a manager, but you choose to be a leader. That's where the self-leadership starts with. Parenting is much the same. As a parent, there's no manual or procedures or guide that says to you, this is how you parent. Yes, there are self-help books and all kinds of things available, but those are based on other people's experiences. So you have a child, and as a parent, you stumble along and you fall over your own feet and you make mistakes, but you learn through experience. You take a little bit from your parents and from your wife's parents and from somebody else, and you read a book or two, and you learn by experience. What everybody refers to trial and error. Sometimes it's more error than trial. There is no manual. But if you don't learn how to be a parent, you're going to mess up as a parent. So once you've learned how to lead, whether you attend workshops, whether you read books, whether you get mentored by somebody that is a strong leader, then you need to develop relationships. You need to have a relationship with your team. If we look at leadership, this concept of relationships started more than 2,500 years ago. We all know Sun Tzu, the famous general who wrote the book, The Art of War. Many of us in business have read the book over and over. In 500 BC, we had the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, and Lao Tzu actually said it best when he said that a leader is best when the people barely know that he exists. I'm there, but my team is not that aware of me. They're not that focused and afraid of me. And then, when they've completed the job, they actually think they did it themselves. And all through time, that was the message that came. Cicero, the Roman philosopher, said the same thing. Jesus of Nazareth in the Bible also said about, if you want to be great, you first need to learn how to serve. And then it all went wrong. The wheels fell off completely. Along came a gentleman by the name of Niccolo Machiavelli, and he wrote a book called The Prince, and what he said was, it's all about the leader. The focus is on the leader. The leader needs to maintain control. The leader always needs to be in charge, no matter what, even if it meant using devious methods. And he turned the whole concept of leadership on its head. And from there, it went downhill and it carried on. And we had people like Thomas Carlyle with his great man theory. And then we had Frederick Taylor who came along and said, yeah, forget about the people. Just give them bonuses, give them incentives, and they'll work automatically. It's like hanging a carrot in front of a horse. And this carried on. Then we got the labor movement, which actually started early in the 17th century already, but in the early 1900s in America, it really came to the fore. And we now had the workers and the team standing up for their rights, and management saying, you know what, we need to protect the money, we need to protect the shareholders and the bottom line, so let's get rid of the workers, let's protect the bottom line. And luckily, in 1997, a gentleman by the name of Robert Greenleaf wrote a book called Servant Leadership, and we turned leadership back to where it started 2,500 years ago. And it was all about the leader serving the team. And it followed. There were many people that followed. The latest one that I have read was Simon Sinek's book called Leaders Eat Last. What's important with relationships is that you need to take care of the people. What we tend to do as management is that we protect the shareholders, we protect the bottom line, and we sacrifice the people. We should do it the other way around. If we build relationships with our people, if we show our people that we care for them, if we show our people that we are aware of what they're going through and we have empathy for our people, what will happen is they will automatically boost your bottom line, because they will be doing things for you because they want to, not because you're forcing them to. So you don't have to worry about the bottom line. One of our biggest mistakes or areas of concern that we have today in business is technology. We don't communicate anymore. Technology is brilliant. It speeds everything up. It really has assisted us and taken us to the next level. But it's also created a problem in communication. We send emails. We join hundreds of WhatsApp groups. It's easier, but it's impersonal. We run around with our cell phones everywhere. Every time a beep goes off, then I first got to check who sent me a message, and I've got to WhatsApp back. Even if I'm traveling on the highway at 160 kilometers an hour, I'm steering with my knees and I'm texting somebody. My son broke up with his first girlfriend by sending her a text message. I nearly freaked. But he thought it was normal. That is the way we carry on today. Get up out of your office, go to your team, and go and talk to them. You'd be surprised what will happen. If they realize that you're genuine and you're really concerned with, and you really want to build that relationship with them, they'll start telling you stuff. They won't hide things from you anymore. We don't allow people to make mistakes, and as a result, they hide things away from us. If the accountant made a mistake in the books, they try and cover it up, and they try and hide it away because they are afraid of what's going to happen to them, because there's no relationship between them and the leader. Many years ago, when I worked for that retail organization I mentioned, when I was a store manager and I had my own store, those days we never had electronics or technology. So when we used to do stock takes, we used little yellow slips and you used to write the description and the quantity and the price, and you used to stick it on each pile of merchandise as we went along. And it was important. The auditors, they were all sequentially numbered, and if one number was gone, it was the end of the world for the auditors. So this was a big thing. You couldn't lose that. And what we told them was that if you made a mistake, don't get rid of it or discard it, just pull a line through it and then put the right number or the right price there. And we used a lot of casual help when we did stock take. And I had this one school girl who came and helped. And when we eventually collected all the slips, there was one missing. And after checking and rechecking and double checking and getting other people to help 3 or 4 times, we found out that this slip is gone. And we traced it back all the way, and we got to the pile where the slip was supposed to be, and we saw, no, but it skips. But I know that I checked it before, and all the numbers, everything was there. And then I started investigating, and this poor little girl comes up, scared, witless, saying, oh, but she ate it. What did you eat it for? No, she made a mistake, and she was scared she was going to get into trouble, so she ate the slip to try and hide it. And that's the extent that people go to. If you don't allow people to make mistakes and learn, they're going to try and hide things from you. Same as in a family. If your son hits the cricket ball through the window, you're not going to say to him, oh, that's it, out, off you go to a children's home, or you're up for adoption because you made a mistake. No, you discipline them, you help them right, but you keep them. So why, when people make mistakes in our organizations, we fire them? Why don't we build those relationships? Why don't we develop them? Why don't we allow them to learn? If I knew 20 years ago what I know now, I'd have been a totally different area manager. Because as an area manager, I had 17 stores. Those stores reported to me. Each branch manager could earn a production bonus if they made their target, their sales target for the month. If every store made sales target, my area made target, which meant that I also got a production bonus. So where was my focus? On my production bonus. So I used to drive these guys. Come on, you need to advertise more, you need to get more stock, you need to do this, you need to go, you need to do this. And I was pushing them because what did I want? I wanted to make my target, and I wanted a bonus because I could do a lot with that money. If I'd known then what I know now, my focus would have shifted to the manager, and I would have been developing the manager to be the best possible manager that they can be, and growing them so that they can possibly also become area manager one day. And in the process, what would have happened? They would have made target, because we would have all been working as a team, and with them all making target, I'd have automatically made my target and got my bonus without even working at it. And that is the problem that we have as leaders. We think it's about us, and we focus on ourselves, and we don't focus on our team. If I learn to lead, and I know how to lead, and I build these relationships, and I get this caring process going with my people, then I will develop trust as a leader. My people will trust me. Why don't we trust our leaders? Simple reason, because they don't get taught how to lead. So what happens? You have an accountant who's a very good accountant. The company sends them on more courses and more courses and more courses, and they degrees and honors and masters, and they become brilliant accountants. And then one day the company expands. And when the company expands, what happens? We need a financial manager. So you are a very good, brilliant, well-educated accountant. Let's take you out and let's make you the financial manager, and you have these bunch of accountants that report to you. What happens? That financial manager rocks up in their new office on day one, and they sit there and they think, what am I supposed to do? They have no idea. The only job they know is being an accountant, because you put them in a position, but you never gave them the tools. You never taught them. So what do? They start micromanaging, because they start doing accounting instead of leading the team and growing the organization further. A leader has to remember, it's not about you. It's about the team. So if you get that concept right and you take the focus off you, the same as Sun Tzu, Lao Tzu, Cicero, these people mentioned 2,500 years ago. If you focus on the team and not on yourself, in the same way that an artist does, then you will get your people to trust you. Have you ever noticed what happens when you throw a rock into a pond or into a large area of water? It causes ripple effects. Rings. I call those leader rings. But you have noticed that where the rock lands, in the middle, and the rings move out, not inward. So the concept is that rock, that is the dangers and the threats that attack your team. Who takes the brunt of that attack? The leader. You don't sacrifice your people. So if things go wrong, you take the responsibility. You take it. You need to protect those rings. So if this is the CEO, and that is the directors, and that is senior management, and those are the supervisors, and so on, you'll notice that it's going outward. So you need to have the back of that person in the next level, and so on, and so on, and so on. If we look at the diagram, then you will notice I've used the arrows and the shield. Have you ever noticed in the times of the Romans and the old British Empire, when they used to go to war, they used to put on armor. They didn't have that metal armor those days. They used to wear that leather armor. So they would put on a helmet, a steel helmet, and sometimes they had a visor, and they would put on this breastplate, which was a combination of brass and leather, and they would have their cladding on, and they would have their boots on with their shins covered, and they'd have protection on their arms, and they'd have their shield and their sword or their bow and arrow, whatever. But have you ever noticed the back? There's no protection at the back. So if you don't have the back of the person who reports to you, they are unprotected and they're going to get attacked. And the same as in any war or fight that you're in, if you get a break somewhere, then the enemy comes in. So if you as the leader have the back of the person in front of you or below you and it carries on, what happens with that person that's down on the ground, the lowest team member? They are facing your client or your customers. So automatically what will happen is they will protect the entire organization, because they don't know. They don't have to turn around and look what's coming from behind. They know you've got their back. Leader rings create safety. Safety for that person to know that you have their back, that you are protecting them. They don't have to have armor on their back, because they know that you are behind them and you are there and you're looking out for them and you're taking those arrows for them. The only way to make this picture complete, if you've learned how to be a leader, if you've developed the relationships, the only way to make it complete and to maintain that trust is to have feedback. You need to tell your people how they are doing. We spoke earlier about communication. Communication is important. If I've done something well, you need to tell me that I've done something well. Similarly, if I've done something wrong, you need to tell me that I've done something wrong. Not shout and scream at me and kick my butt out of the organization. Have empathy. Understand. You as a leader learned by making mistakes. That's how you gained your experience. Allow the others to also make mistakes. Instead of firing the person or shouting at them, assist them, help them, let them learn. Failure is only failure if you don't learn from the experience. But feedback works two ways. You need to allow your people to also give you feedback. Forget the open door policy. We love using that word. I prefer to have an open ear policy. Listen. I have a practice in my organization where on a biannual basis I do performance appraisals of my staff. Normal performance appraisal process where you have a look at key priorities, did they do it, didn't they do it, you score them, the whole process. But what I do differently is after I've done a performance appraisal of them, I ask them to either send me an email or to write a letter or whatever and put down on paper 5 things that they like about me as a leader and 5 things that they don't like that I do as a leader. And then I go through it, and then we have a one-on-one session in the boardroom, just the two of us, and I get them to explain to me exactly what it is that I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing right, and what I'm doing wrong. And then we agree that I will change and I will make a plan and we'll move forward. Maybe it's a misunderstanding and we can explain it. Maybe it's some habit or some practice that I need to change. That's the only way I get my people to trust me and to respect me, is I allow them to also tell them what they think of me, not just me sitting there managing and hammering them all the time. We need to develop that trust. We need to learn to also serve our team and our people. Have you noticed, if you have a picture, if you look at the picture and you have the leader and you have the team forever bowing down and scraping to the leader, have you noticed which part of the team member faces the client? But if I use the leader rings and I apply the art of leadership, what happens? I have the back of my team member. My team member is facing away from me because they know I'm protecting them, they know I've got them covered, and they are dealing and looking at the customer. So I have a totally different organization. Everybody works together, everything gels, and everything works. So I have a question. What type of leader are you? Are you that magnificent black stallion? Or are you a rat?